I was 36 when I died. And in those moments beyond the veil, Jesus showed me something that shattered every argument I'd ever made. My name is Daniel Marcus Hartwell. I died on February 22nd, 2026, at 9:17 p.m. in a city called Greystone, somewhere between skepticism and certainty. I was dead for 17 minutes, but in those 17 minutes, I met the God I'd spent my entire life denying, and what he showed me wasn't what I expected. It wasn't fire and brimstone. It wasn't punishment. It was something far more devastating. It was mercy. And I realized that the judgment I feared was nothing compared to the love I'd rejected. Before I tell you what I saw, I need you to do something with me. Close your eyes right now, just for a moment, and whisper one word. Whisper truth. Don't overthink it. Don't analyze it. Just say it. Truth. If something in you stirred, if something in you hesitated, if something in you resisted, then you need to hear this. Because what I'm about to tell you is not comfortable. It's not easy, but it's real. And it might be the last warning some of you ever get. I grew up in a religious household. That's the irony. My parents were devout. Church every Sunday. Bible studies on Wednesday nights. Prayer before every meal. Grace before bed. I knew the scriptures. I knew the hymns. I knew the language. But I never believed it. Even as a kid, I thought it was theater. Performance. A way for weak people to cope with the randomness of existence. By the time I was 16, I'd stopped pretending. I told my parents I was an atheist. My mother cried. My father got angry. But I didn't care. I felt free. Free from the guilt. Free from the rules. Free from the fairy tale. I went to college and majored in philosophy. I read Nietzsche, Dawkins, Hitchens. I armed myself with arguments. I learned how to dismantle faith with logic, how to make believers doubt, how to mock the idea of a loving God in a world full of suffering, and I was good at it, really good. I started a blog, then a podcast, then a YouTube channel. I became known in atheist circles as someone who didn't just debate Christians. I destroyed them. I made them look foolish, ignorant, naive, and I enjoyed it. I told myself I was helping people, setting them free from superstition. But the truth is, I enjoyed the power, the superiority, the feeling of being smarter than the people who believed. I had a girlfriend once who was a Christian, Emily. She was kind, gentle. She never pushed her faith on me, but she lived it. And I hated that about her. Because I couldn't argue with the way she loved people, the way she forgave, the way she had peace even when things were falling apart. So I mocked her. I made jokes about her prayers. I called her Bible a book of fairy tales. I told her she was delusional. And eventually, she left. She didn't yell. She didn't fight. She just looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Daniel. But I can't watch you destroy yourself anymore." I told myself I didn't care, that she was just weak. But something about the way she said it stayed with me. Something about the sadness in her voice. I pushed it down. I kept doing what I was doing, making videos, writing articles, tearing down faith, building my platform. My followers loved me. They called me brave. They called me a hero. They said I was speaking truth to power. But late at night when I was alone, I felt empty, hollow, like I was shouting into a void and the void was shouting back. The day I died, I was recording a podcast. The topic was why prayer is a waste of time. I was in the middle of a rant about how faith was just wishful thinking, how believers were just afraid of death, how religion was the opiate of the masses. And then I felt it. A tightness in my chest, a sharp, searing pain. I tried to keep talking, but I couldn't breathe. I stood up, knocked over my coffee, reached for my phone. But my vision went black, and I fell. The last thing I remember was the sound of my microphone hitting the desk. And then nothing. Just silence. A silence so absolute it felt like I'd been erased. I opened my eyes, and I wasn't in my studio anymore. I was standing. I looked around, and I was in a place that had no walls, no ceiling, no floor. Just light. Not harsh light, soft light, golden. and I could see my body on the floor behind me, paramedics rushing in, someone doing chest compressions. But I wasn't there. I was somewhere else. And I wasn't afraid. I should have been. But I wasn't. And then I saw him. He was standing a few feet away, watching me. And I knew. I knew it was Jesus. Not because he looked like the paintings. He didn't have a halo. He didn't have robes. He looked ordinary, like a carpenter, like a man. But his eyes were not ordinary. They were deep, ancient, full of something I couldn't name. And he was smiling. Not a smug smile, not an "I told you so" smile. Just a sad, knowing smile. Like he'd been waiting for this moment, like he'd known it was coming. And I felt something I'd never felt before. Shame. Not because he was angry, but because he was kind. He walked toward me, and I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear, because I knew who he was, and I knew what I'd done. I'd spent my entire life denying him, mocking him, destroying the faith of others. And now I was standing in front of him, and he was real. "Daniel," he said. His voice was quiet, steady, not condemning, just sad. "You've been running from me your whole life, but you can't run anymore." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stood there staring at him, waiting for the punishment, waiting for the wrath. But it didn't come. He just looked at me with those eyes, those unbearably kind eyes. And he said, "Come, there's something I need to show you." He turned and started walking, and I followed, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't not follow. The light around us shifted, and suddenly we were somewhere else. I saw people, thousands of them, millions of them. They were walking, but they weren't walking toward anything. They were just walking, endlessly, aimlessly, and their faces were empty, hollow, lost. And Jesus said, "Do you see them?" I nodded. "These are the ones who mocked me," he said. "Not the ones who doubted, not the ones who struggled, but the ones who knew the truth and rejected it anyway. The ones who used their intelligence, their influence, their platforms to lead others away from me. The ones who made a game out of destroying faith." I felt something twist in my chest, because I recognized some of them. I recognized faces I'd seen in videos, in debates, in articles, people I'd admired, people I'd followed, people who'd paved the way for people like me. And Jesus said, "This is what awaits them. Not fire, not torture, but separation. Complete and total separation from me. From love, from light, from meaning. They get exactly what they wanted. A world without God, and it is the loneliest place in existence." I watched as one man walked past. His eyes were vacant. He was muttering to himself, repeating arguments, repeating logic, repeating reasons. But there was no one to argue with, no one to convince, just endless, hollow repetition. And Jesus said, "He spent his whole life proving I didn't exist, and now he has what he wanted, a reality where I'm not there, but he still exists, and he has to live with that forever." I felt sick, not because of the punishment, but because of the waste, the absolute, senseless waste. "Why did you let them do it?" I asked. "Why didn't you stop them?" Jesus turned to me, and his eyes were full of tears. "Because I gave them free will," he said. "I gave them the choice, and they chose. Every single one of them had moments when I called, when I whispered, when I offered them truth. But they refused. They wanted to be their own God, and so I let them. Because love doesn't force, love invites, and they said no." He showed me more. He showed me a woman standing on a stage, mocking believers, laughing at them, making the audience laugh with her, and I saw the ripple effect. I saw young people in the crowd who were questioning their faith, struggling, and her words pushed them over the edge. They walked away. They hardened their hearts. They rejected God, not because of their own doubts, but because of her influence. And Jesus said, "She didn't just reject me. She led others to reject me. And every soul that walked away because of her words is a weight she carries. I felt the weight of that, the horror of it, because I'd done the same thing. I'd influenced people. I'd made videos that had millions of views. I'd written articles that had been shared thousands of times, and I'd never once thought about the souls I was affecting. I'd thought I was setting people free, but I was leading them into darkness and calling it light. Jesus walked further, and I followed, and he showed me something that broke me. He showed me Emily, my ex-girlfriend. She was kneeling in a church praying, and I could hear her words. She was praying for me. Even after everything I'd said, even after the way I'd treated her, she was praying for my soul. She was asking Jesus to save me, to reach me, to break through my pride. And I saw the tears on her face, and I realized she'd never stopped loving me. She'd never stopped believing that I could be saved, and I'd thrown it away. I'd called her weak. I'd mocked her faith. And all along, she'd been the strong one. She'd been the one who truly saw. Jesus said, "She prayed for you every day, for years." And I heard every prayer. I answered every prayer. I gave you chance after chance. I put people in your path. I whispered to your heart. But you refused to listen. You chose pride over truth. You chose mockery over love. And now, Daniel, you're here. And you have a choice. I looked at him, and I couldn't breathe. "What choice?" I whispered. He stepped closer, and his eyes held mine. "You can go back," he said. "You can live. You can tell people what you saw. You can undo the damage you did. You can use your voice to lead people to me instead of away from me. Or you can stay. You can face the consequence of your choices. You can join the ones who walked away. The choice is yours." I fell to my knees. I'd never knelt before. Not to anyone. Not to anything. But I knelt, and I wept. Not pretty tears. Ugly, desperate, broken tears. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. I was so arrogant, so blind, so cruel. I didn't know. I didn't know you were real. I didn't know it mattered." And Jesus knelt beside me. He didn't say it was okay. He didn't say it didn't matter. He just said, "I know. But it's not too late. Not for you. Not yet." He reached out, and for the first time, he touched me, his hand on my shoulder, and I felt it. I felt the weight of every soul I'd led astray. I felt the weight of every word I'd spoken in mockery. I felt the weight of every moment I'd chosen pride over truth. And it was crushing, unbearable. But then I felt something else. I felt his love, not despite what I'd done, but in the midst of it. And I understood. This was grace. This was mercy. This was the thing I'd spent my whole life denying. And it was real. And then there was a pull. A violent, jarring pull. I gasped, and suddenly I was back. Back in my body. Back on the floor. Paramedics were still working on me. Someone was shouting, "We got him! We got him back!" Pain. Burning, searing pain in my chest. But I was alive. And I was different. I spent 4 days in the hospital. The doctor said I'd had a massive heart attack. They said it was a miracle I survived. But I knew better. I knew exactly why I was still alive. When I got home, the first thing I did was shut down my podcast, my YouTube channel, my blog, everything. My followers were furious. They called me a sellout, a coward. They said I'd lost my mind. But I didn't care, because I had lost my mind. The old one. The one that thought it knew everything. The one that thought mockery was wisdom. The one that thought pride was strength. I called Emily. I didn't think she'd answer. But she did. And I told her everything. I told her I was sorry. I told her she was right. I told her I'd met Jesus. And she didn't say, "I told you so." She just cried and said, "I knew he'd reach you. I never stopped believing." I started going to church, the same church she went to. I sat in the back. I didn't talk to anyone. I just listened. And I cried. A lot. Because I was hearing truth for the first time. Really hearing it. And it was breaking me open. I started reading the Bible. Not to find arguments against it, but to understand it. to know the God I'd spent my life rejecting. And every page wrecked me, because I saw myself in the Pharisees, in Saul, in the ones who thought they knew better. And I saw Jesus, patient, kind, merciful, even to the ones who mocked him, even to the ones who killed him. I started writing again, but not to tear down faith, to build it. I wrote about what I'd seen, about the emptiness that awaits those who reject God, about the mercy that's available even to the worst of us. And some people listened, not as many as before, but some. And I got messages from people who said, I was walking away, but your story stopped me. From people who said, I thought faith was for weak people, but maybe I was wrong. And I realized, this was what Jesus meant. This was the redemption. Using my voice to undo the damage I'd done, one soul at a time. I reached out to people I'd debated, people I'd humiliated, and I apologized. Some forgave me, some didn't, but I apologized anyway, because I needed to, because they deserved to hear it. I started volunteering at a homeless shelter, serving food, listening to stories, and I met people who had nothing, but they had faith, and I saw the peace in their eyes, the same peace Emily had, the same peace I'd mocked, and I wanted it. So I prayed. For the first time in my life, I really prayed, not to prove a point, not to test if anyone was listening, but because I needed to, because I was broken, and I needed to be made whole. And slowly things changed. The emptiness lifted, the anger faded, the superiority dissolved. I started to see people differently, not as opponents, not as projects, but as souls, as image bearers, as people loved by the God I'd denied. And I started to love them too, not because I was good at it, but because he was teaching me. I'm still here, still learning, still undoing years of damage, still trying to make amends, but I'm not the same. I can't be, because I know the truth now, and the truth has set me free. Jesus is real, heaven is real, hell is real, and the choices we make matter. They matter eternally. I spent my life thinking I was smarter than believers, but I was the fool. I was the one who couldn't see. I was the one who chose darkness and called it light. If you're reading this, if you felt something when I asked you to whisper that word, then listen to me. If you're an atheist, if you're a skeptic, if you've spent your life mocking faith, I'm not here to debate you. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm just here to tell you what I saw. There is a God, and he loves you. Even if you've spent your whole life denying him, even if you've used your intelligence, your influence, your voice to lead others away from him, he still loves you. But love doesn't force. Love invites, and you have to choose. You can keep mocking, keep arguing, keep building your platform on the destruction of faith, and one day you'll stand where I stood, and you'll see what I saw, and it will be too late. Or you can choose differently. You can humble yourself. You can admit you might be wrong. You can stop running, and you can meet the God who's been chasing you your whole life. Right now, I want you to do something. I want you to say this out loud. Even if you don't believe it, even if it feels ridiculous, say it. Jesus, if you're real, show me. That's it. That's all you have to say. And then be still. Be quiet. And listen. He'll answer. Maybe not the way you expect. Maybe not immediately. But he'll answer. Because he's been waiting for you to ask. Write in the comments, Jesus, show me. Not as a joke, not as a challenge, but as a real honest question. Because the answer will change everything. The world will tell you that faith is for the weak, that intelligence and belief are incompatible, that science has disproven God. But it's a lie. The smartest thing I ever did was admit I was wrong. The bravest thing I ever did was kneel before the God I'd spent my life denying. And the best thing that ever happened to me was meeting Jesus. Not in a debate, not in a book, but face to face, in the place between life and death, where all the arguments fall away, and only truth remains. I was 36 when I died, but I was 36 when I truly started living. Not in mockery, not in pride, but in surrender, in humility, in love. And you can too. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you're standing where I stood. Choose now. Choose truth. Choose Jesus, because he's real, and he's waiting, not to condemn you, but to save you. Write it. Jesus, show me. And then watch what happens, because he will. And when he does, you'll never be the same. The truth is here. The love is real, and the choice is yours. Don't waste it.